Can I not? Okay. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I appreciate all you guys being in here on such short notice. I definitely was not planning to do a live stream today. And I'm just going to preface you guys, this is going to be a quick live stream because I got to go here in a little bit and I was not expecting to have to hop on here and do this, but we got to talk about some big breaking news that just happened today. So, you know, let's do that. I was away when it happened, so I'm definitely very late. But first, let's say what's up to everybody who's in the stream. Philly on top. What's going on? GP, Trap, Hewitt, Amoni Bentley, all these people. Dylan, BLSG. What's up, bro? I've been doing pretty good. Hope you're doing good as well. But let's just start talking about this because I do gotta be quick. So basically, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but the Philadelphia Eagles made a trade today, very surprising trade, as they made a move with the Houston Texans to acquire wide receiver John Metchie III. And there's there's a lot I can say about this, so I'm gonna try and keep this as organized as I possibly can. But my instant reaction to seeing this news was that this is it's really strange. It's a really strange, unexpected, interesting move because, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that Howie Roseman was going to make a trade. I expected him to make a move, very late into the offseason. He does that every single year. But, if you're talking about what positions I would think that Howie would be targeting, I feel like at the top of the list would be probably cornerback, just because obviously that seems to be the biggest concern right now for the Eagles. And then, you got safety. Obviously, Andrew Makuba had a really good game yesterday. Sidney Brown, I think I'm a little bit higher on Sidney Brown than a lot of people, but he's been okay. Wide receiver was about last on the list of positions I thought the Eagles might try and target, just because, obviously they're stacked at that position. You got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, you got Jahan Dotson, who, last year he wasn't great, but he did get here, probably around this time, honestly, right before the start of the season, barely had any time to acclimate himself, build chemistry with Jalen Hurts and the rest of the offense. And, by the end of the season, he was still a solid wide receiver 3. He did his job, made catches when he needed to. Had a couple big plays in the playoffs. And then even behind those top 3 guys, you got, Johnny Wilson, who looked really good in that first preseason game and is definitely a lock to make the team, in my opinion. And then you got Aniyah Smith, who obviously the Birds drafted last year. So I feel like they'd probably want to keep him around. And then you got Darius Cooper, who's been probably one of the bigger surprises at training camp, maybe the biggest surprise at training camp so far. Obviously he was great in that game against the Bengals. And then you even got someone like Elijah Cooks, who I think at this point probably isn't going to make the team. I think that was kind of already foregone conclusion before John Metchie got here. But, he was playing really well or performing really well during training camp as well. So it's just interesting that they would go out and make a trade for a wide receiver. I got some notes here real quick. Let me just look through. I'm sorry, guys. I haven't been on a live in a while. But yeah, I mean, again, my initial reaction to the trade was that I just didn't quite get it. because again, I don't think we need him. And now I'm curious as to what this means for, a guy like Darius Cooper or someone like Anaya Smith. Like, does that mean they're not going to make the team now? I don't know. Now, as far as John Metchie himself goes, like, I think he's an interesting player. He missed his entire first season, and then the last 2 years, he hasn't really put up big numbers at all. I believe it was like just a little over 100 yards in that first year and then over 200 yards last year. Can't quite remember. But sorry, I just got distracted by one of the comments, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, it's not like he's done anything that noteworthy during his NFL career so far. Now that said, he does have some nice potential. Yeah, like Carrie pointed out here, he did play with Devontae Smith at Alabama. So he's got some ties there, and I think what ultimately I'll get to later is that I think the Eagles probably liked him coming out of the draft, so they saw an opportunity to get him and they just jumped on it. But again, it's not like they needed him. It's not like they needed to make this move to get him. But Metchie, again, he's an interesting player. I think he has probably he's got a similar build to Jahan Dotson, maybe a little bit bigger, but about the same height, about the same weight. They probably have similar skill sets as well. He's a guy that could probably play in the slot. He's got some speed. Just be a versatile weapon. It's just Jahan Dotson, in my opinion, is better. Like Dotson, I think this offseason, there's been a lot of positive buzz about him during training camp. As he had this entire offseason now just to get acclimated with the offense, with the rest of the guys, Jalen Hurts. And, he's looked good during training camp so far. And even in that first preseason game that he played against the Bengals, he was really, really good. And they pulled him out like pretty much after one series. And that was just about it. So, I think it's pretty clear Jahan Dotson's still your wide receiver 3. And I guess John Metchie's just going to come in here and try and be a good depth piece. But yeah, it's a really very interesting move. Carrie says maybe he can be good on special teams. Possibly. Maybe you could use him as a returner. I don't know if he has any experience doing that. Still got to do a little bit more research before I get my final opinions on this trade. I didn't even go over the full trade compensation. I feel like I'm so disorganized right now. So let's do that really quickly. So let's add this back, and if I can get them, I'm on bookmarks. So the full trade compensation is that the Eagles got John Metchie and a 6th-round pick, and the Texans got tight end Harrison Bryant and a 5th-round pick. And at this point, I think we pretty much all knew that Harrison Bryant was not going to make the roster. So, I will say this, like, it's not like you're risking anything with this trade. It's not like, anything bad's going to come of it is that's my opinion. Like, I think the worst thing that happens is maybe you cut one of these receivers, one of these backup receivers that has some promise and has looked good in camp, and they get picked up by somebody else. But at the end of the day, that's not really a risk at all. Cause you got Metchie, he's a solid player. So it's interesting. And I'm pretty sure these draft picks here, this 5th-round pick and this 6th-round pick, are the same picks that were in that CJ Gardner-Johnson trade. And it was like the Eagles sending them this 5th-round pick. And then, no, we sent them this 6th-round pick, and then we got a 5th-round pick. And I'm pretty sure they just swapped him back. So it's really interesting how it all comes full circle there. But, again, it's not really, we didn't really give up anything. So I can kind of understand if he was available, why the Eagles would think this is a good move. Something else I saw, or something else that I actually thought about, like pretty much one of my first thoughts after I saw that this trade happened, is that maybe it has something to do with the A.J. Brown injury, because obviously he's missed a good chunk of time during training camp, probably the last 2 or 3 weeks with this hamstring injury. Now, at one point, he did come back. I think it was 2 practices. It was the public practice and the practice after that. He did participate, but just in limited fashion. Like, I don't think he did team drills. And then, since then, he's been out. So, part of me is like, well, maybe the A.J. Brown injury is a little bit worse than they're telling us. Maybe it's something that's going to linger on throughout the season. So they wanted to get some extra depth at wide receiver. So that's why they made this trade for Metchie. But even then, it's like I feel like the guys that they have behind AJ, Devontae, and Jahan Dotson, I feel like I would trust them well enough to step up and just give you some quality snaps in AJ's absence, as long as he's not out for too long. And it's not like Mechie's a guy who's like super established in the league, and you know, like it's not like he's like a sure thing, is what I'm saying. So I don't know. Maybe they just. I think ultimately what happened, like I said earlier, is that they like John Metchie coming out of the draft. They saw an opportunity to get him. The Texans were trying to trade him, and they didn't have to give up really anything to get him. So they were like, all right, why not? Let's just make a trade, get John Metchie in here, see what he can do. But, it's interesting. Again, I kind of was wishing, like I saw that they made a trade before I saw actually who they traded for, and I was hoping it was for a cornerback. So it was definitely a surprise to see that they made a move for a wide receiver. And it's also interesting because Mechie's a guy who I feel like we've been hearing his name come up over the past several off seasons as a potential target for the Eagles before they made the Jahan Dotson trade, right? Like when they had Quez Watkins as wide receiver 3, I feel like I heard his name mentioned. And then even last off season when there was I think it was like Britton Covey and Johnny Wilson and Nia Smith, like all competing for that job. I heard his name mentioned as well, but then they made the move for Dotson, and I was like, okay, kind of closed that door, but I guess door opened back up. The Texans wanted to trade him. And again, it's not like the Eagles gave up anything. Like Harrison Bryant, somebody who they were going to cut, and then, a little pick swap. It's not like they really gained anything with that draft pick. They got like 13 draft picks next year, so that's not really a big deal at all. But, that's the best. I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place right now just because I haven't been on live stream in a while. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I feel like that's the best way I can make sense of it, Like, yeah, I don't think we needed a wide receiver. I don't think it's a bad move either, because I think Metchie has some intriguing traits that he can offer. Like here, I saw this post by ML Football. Now, this is ML Football, so take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. I don't think this claim that he makes here in this post is fully true, but he says the Eagles got one of the nastiest route runners in the NFL in John Metchie. Now, I don't think he's one of the nastiest route runners in the NFL. I feel like that's probably an over-exaggeration, but he's got some nice route running ability. So that is definitely, again, I think he's got some high upside. He's got some good potential. So we'll see what he can do. Another element to this, people were saying maybe it's like, I saw some initial speculation. It could be a move for the future before we really, knew anything. The guy is going to be a free agent after this year. So it's not like it's a move to, bring someone in that's going to be here for the next several seasons. And it's also his contract, I believe. I think his cap hit's higher than Jahan Dotson's is this year. So it's like, it's none of that. I guess they just saw an opportunity to get a player who they like for pretty much nothing. And that's why they did it. So I think, if you look at it that way, it makes sense. But again, definitely was not expecting them to trade for a wide receiver. So, I don't even know how I would grade this trade, honestly. Like, I think it's a solid move if you look at it through that lens of just they like him, they thought they'd give him a shot, and it's really no risk to it whatsoever. So, if you're looking at it from the perspective of can this guy come in here and help the team win right now? Probably not. I don't know. I mean, depends on, hopefully no one gets injured, but I'd say he's probably your wide receiver 4 right now. Maybe. I honestly don't know because, again, he's a guy that now is just getting here and he's got to learn the entire offense. He's got to build chemistry with all the guys. So could be a little bit of a Jahan Dotson situation where, he's going to have a learning curve. He's got to take some time to adjust and just get acclimated to things. And it's going to take him a bit. And also, it's not like Metchie has really done anything in the league so far. Like he's got some ability, but it's never really materialized. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see. I did see a comment in here that I wanted to bring up because I missed this, if this is true. Frankie Ray says that Jordan Schultz, who broke the trade, said an AFC general manager texted him and said the Eagles aren't done yet. So I want to bring that up real quick because that's interesting. I want to see. By the way, shout out to all 70 people in here. If you haven't already, please like this stream because it helps me out so much. Yeah, let's see if I can get this Jordan Schultz tweet pulled up because that would be really interesting. And I did not see that. So we have that. That's pinned. Okay, here it is. Hold on. Let me pull it up. All right, here it says. So he says, text from an AFC GM, quote, "Don't think the Eagles are done with trades. They have so many picks next year, and that team is always going to be aggressive." So, reading that for the first time kind of sounds like they're doing a little bit of speculating, but also at the same time, that makes perfect sense because, like I just said, I'm pretty sure the Eagles are going to have 13 draft picks next year. They're not going to pick 13 players because you just can't really do that. So, I definitely would not be surprised to see the Eagles make a few more moves. Obviously, was it just last week that they made the Ja'Cory and Bennett trade? So, that I think is still very much a possibility that they go out and make more moves. Again, I think the cornerback position is easily the biggest question mark on the team right now. I'd love to see them make a move, whether it's a trade, whether it's a signing to get somebody else in here, unless, they think Ja'Cory and Bennett's the guy and they're confident in that. But again, he's another one of those guys that just got here and he's got a lot to learn and a lot of adjusting to do before he gets to, a good spot. So we'll see. If they make more trades, again, I'm hoping it's for corner, maybe safety. On the defensive side of the ball is really what I'd be looking for. But again, this move, I guess, if you look at it through that lens of they like this player, they've been interested in him for a while, and they saw an opportunity to get him while giving up pretty much nothing, then it makes perfect sense. But if you just look at it from like, what do the Eagles need right now? Wide receiver, don't really need one of those, but whatever. So interesting move for sure. I'm curious. I'm going to go through some of these comments here. I'm curious to know if you guys have any more thoughts. If you guys have any more thoughts on the move. Aaron says, sorry for missing your vids. Been playing football. Look, I appreciate you, bro. You're good. 81 people in here, by the way. So make sure you like the stream. Hopefully the audio quality is better. I know when I've streamed in the past, I don't have a mic because I haven't been able to figure that out. But I think I got it working. So the audio should be a little bit better right now, hopefully. Savage says, how likely do you think it is that Scary Terry gets traded? That I have not put a lot of thought into that since that news came out. Honestly, I think when it initially happened, it was funny because I feel like the Commanders are just kind of, they had a great season last year. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like they're kind of like slipping back to, I think, first of all, Josh Harris's Sixers-ifying them over there because they're getting all these old players that are going to get hurt. But I don't know. I don't think Scary Terry is super, super likely to get traded, but it is funny the situation that's going on right now. And hold on real quick. Let me check something because, okay. Yeah, I do got to go soon. So I'll stay on for like maybe 5-10 more minutes and then I'll be out of here. But if you guys have any more thoughts, put them in the chat and I'll respond to some of you guys right now. Thomas Brown says, yeah, he's a good route runner, not one of the best in the league. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking. ML football tends to exaggerate their posts. But yeah, anybody else got any thoughts on the trade? Mara says wide receiver. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I think they just saw an opportunity to get a player that they liked, so they made the move. They didn't really give up anything, so it's whatever. I'm just curious to see how this goes for like someone like, Darius Cooper or Anais Smith. Because in my video that I put out today, which by the way, if you haven't watched that already, go check it out. But pretty much what I was saying, I was talking about the backup wide receivers, and I was saying that, even though Darius Cooper didn't really do anything in that game against the Browns, it's not really his fault because the passing game was non-existent anyway. And I still think they might have found something with him, and I thought that they liked him. And I also think that they kind of like Anais Smith as well, because obviously they picked him last year in the 5th round, so they probably want to keep him around. They probably want to see, if they can keep my goodness, Darius Cooper around as well. So I don't know. Now that they make this trade, I feel like one of those guys is definitely gone. And that's interesting. And then also Johnny Wilson. I think Johnny Wilson's safe, but again, all those backup guys, it's just going to be interesting to see what their roles are, who makes the team, all that. Let's see here. Anything else that I want to talk about? I mean, I wanted to talk more about Jahan Dotson, but I feel like I kind of already said everything that I needed to say about that. So we'll stay in here for a couple more minutes, see if you guys have any additional thoughts. If not, then I might get up out of here. Just wanted to do a quick stream because I didn't want to not talk about this until tomorrow. I wasn't going to be able to put out another video today, but I wanted to hop on here, talk about it, give my initial reactions to it. 89 people in here, by the way, so I appreciate all you guys. Very short notice. Was not planning to do this today. But if you're in here, like the stream, share it. Appreciate all you guys. JB Harris says, do you think Dotson could be on the move? I don't think so. Because I don't think that John Metchie is like this definitive guy that's going to come in here and make an immediate impact. And I don't think he's somebody that they see or they view as better than Jahan Dotson. Because again, like I said earlier, Dotson got here late last offseason. He didn't really have that time to acclimate with the team. But now that he's had this entire offseason, he's a lot. I think his relationship with Jalen Hurts has grown. I think his chemistry with Jalen Hurts and the rest of the offense has grown. And, from what we've heard, he's been really good during training camp. He was really good in the one series he had in the preseason. And I think that he's going to be a good wide receiver 3 for this team this year. I've said it all offseason that I think he could probably maybe double his stats from last year, get somewhere around 400 yards. Obviously he's not going to get too many opportunities just because you're in an offense with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley. But I do think that Jahan Dotson's going to have a better season. And I think that he also is a more proven guy than John Metchie is. So I don't think he's going to be on the move. I don't see why they would do that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Unless some other team that they're trying to make a trade with really, really wants Jahan Dotson specifically for some reason. And, the Eagles, I don't know what team this would be. I don't know for what player this would be for. Let's say they're trying to make a trade for some corner or something, and they would want a receiver in return. They want Jahan Dotson, maybe, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think Jahan Dotson's staying here. He's your wide receiver 3, and then Metchie's your wide receiver 4. And the only reason they traded for him is just because they like him, and he's someone who they like, and they didn't have to give up really anything to get him. Robert says we got a 5th for a 6th. That's probably why we did it. Well, no, we got the 6th and they got the 5th. So we actually downgraded. And it's not like we need draft picks either. I think that's what it is. Let me double check real fast. We got the 6th and the Texans got the 5th. So it's not, that's not it, I don't think. I don't know. I hope Darius I think one of Darius or Anias is not safe anymore. Bill says if they move Wilson the tight end and have an offer for Dotson, it would make perfect sense, I guess, but I don't think that that's the case. Frankie Ray says this doesn't make sense. We're trying to keep the receivers we have. Now someone is losing their spot. Yeah, that was my kind of initial reaction to it because I like like I said, I like the backups they have. So I still don't fully understand it, but again, I think if you look at it from the perspective of John Metchie is somebody who they've had their eye on for years, they like him, they think he's got high potential, and they didn't have to really give up anything to get him, then maybe they feel like it's worth it, and maybe they feel like it's an upgrade. So, too many wideouts, AJ injury, more than they're letting on. I hope the AJ, I don't think this has to do with the AJ injury. I would say it's not a 0% chance that it has to do with that, but I really hope it's not that. All right, guys. I have to get up out of here. I got to go do something. But I appreciate every single one of you for stopping in. Hopefully, I can do more live streams soon, especially now that I figured out how to do the audio. 9 of you guys in here, real quick before we go. Make sure you guys like the stream. That would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, let me know if you want to see more streams in the future because I like doing these. This is a nice, easy way to hop on here, interact with you guys, talk about some Eagles football, and I think it just makes me better at doing my job. So, again, appreciate all you guys for stopping by, and I'll probably have a video out either tomorrow or the next day. Not quite sure yet, but again, thank you to all you guys. And without all that being said, thank you so much for watching the stream, and I'll see you in the next one.